Hello, everybody. So, this, as you can see from the title of this live stream, this is a response to Richard Innman's video that he's just uploaded, where he's talking about, is England close to a civil war? Well, we're already really in a cold civil war at the minute, aren't we? We're already in a cold civil war. And that is mainly because we're in a cold civil war with our government at the minute, based on their continuing agenda to take freedoms and freedom of expression away from the people of this country. And Richard Innman was talking about what would happen, ways in which a civil war would happen. But I think he's missing the basic thing. I watched the same podcast as he did, where the guy was talking about why England would enter into a civil war and the reasons that would cause it. And one of those main reasons was basically economic. I mean, look at what's about to happen in April. People are already struggling right now with the bills, with the heating, with electricity, with gas, their mortgages, council tax. And it's all set to increase in April, putting even more pressure on already struggling people. And the most dangerous people in the world or in any country are desperate people who are given no other options. They're at the end of their tether. They have nothing else to lose. Those people become very, very dangerous, and they're ordinary people. You walk past them in the street every day. But you get enough people together, and where it's no longer just individuals. You talk about communities, and then it grows from being communities to being regions, and then it becomes counties, and then it becomes multiple counties, where people just think they've got no hope. They're desperate because they can't pay their bills anymore. No matter how many hours they put in at work, the government just keeps taking more tax off them. Then you are sowing the seeds for civil war. Definitely. And especially when you give people no hope. And you can, this government, this is what this government wants. It wants civil war. And believe me, I've been in war zones. I've done private security in Iraq. I've operated in war zones. I've seen this. I've seen war up close. It's not pretty. And it's a mistake when people call it civil war. There's nothing civil about war at all. All bets are off. And I agree with Richard Innman on some of his points where he said everything breaks down. There's no more law. There's no more government. And it's everybody for themselves. You're talking basically medieval type situation. No more law. Everybody for themselves. That sort of thing. And it's a scary time. But that's what we're heading towards. And there was something that he said that I don't agree with. And he said lots of veterans have been talking about this. It's about a home defense force. I think the issue I have with that is, what would that home defense force be used for in this current situation? Because do you really think that it's going to be used to protect the people, or do you think it's going to be used against the people? Given how the police force has been heavily politicized, the army has now become heavily politicized, do you really think that a home defense force is not going to become politicized under this current regime? I think it's a very, very dangerous thing to have, is a home defense force that could be used against the people of this country. A home defense force could be the very thing that triggers the civil war in the first place if it's used against the people of this country. Because let's face it, it won't be used against the jihadists or anybody like that. It will be turned and used against the people of this country to suppress them. Just like the police force has been used to do exactly the same thing. I think it's a very, very dangerous thing to have a home defense force in this climate, given the people that are in charge of this country. I don't agree with that whatsoever. Now, I don't agree with Peter Hitchens on many things at all, But even he suggested that the current police force just needs to be disbanded and we start again from scratch. Now, that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. But it's not fit for purpose. I watched a video today on YouTube. It was an auditor, and he was walking through a police car park. Now, we all know auditors, they do it to get a reaction. They do it to goad the police in some circumstances. They know exactly what they're doing. But in doing so, they expose the complete and utter incompetence of the police in doing so, the complete overreaction. There was this guy was walking through a police car park. Fair enough, he had a mask on and stuff like that. But they just came out all heavy-handed and pulled a taser on him and just had him at taser point. And they went to court. He went to magistrate's court because they said he was not cooperating with police. So they took him to magistrate's court and the judge dismissed the case. So there's no case to answer. And I put this on Twitter today that I think we're more at risk from the diversity, equity, and inclusion higher police force than we are from the criminals now. It's just what I think. Anyway, back to Richard Innman. He seems to think that it's going to be the jihadis that kick it off if there's a civil war in this country. It could literally come from anywhere at this point. I mean, it could even come from the farmers if there's more restrictions put on farmers. That could kick off, and it could literally come from anywhere at the moment because he's right that the country is a powder keg. It's been a powder keg for a very long time, and this isn't something that's just happened. This has been building for years and years and years. The more you demonize people for being patriots, for loving their culture and their identity, when you start to erode that identity away and punish people for being that certain identity, which is what's happening to the native English people, that they find themselves at the back of the queue for jobs because of the diversity, equity, and inclusion rubbish, which is basically just racism towards white people, isn't it? You see even their pastimes, even the things that they enjoy doing, like celebrating St. George's Day, they're demonized for that. They're demonized for being patriotic and having the flag in the back garden. They're called racists for no reason. And I brought this up in the live stream the other day. We are the most tolerant people ever. This isn't a racist country by any stretch of the imagination. If we were as racist as the far left made us out to be, there would be no immigrants coming to this country. None at all. Exactly, Gary. DEI is pure racism. There's no two words about it. It's absolute racism towards white people. It's legitimate government-sanctioned racism against white people. And it's just identity politics. I'm going to say it again. I implore everybody to go and watch Yuri Bezimov, the interview with Yuri Bezimov. He was a KGB defector in the 1980s. And he laid it down. He laid it down step by step of how the communist, socialists, whatever you want to call them, would destabilize society, Western society. And what's happening right now is a blow-for-blow account of what he said of how they would destabilize our society. Identity politics, dividing people up into little groups and then pitching them little groups against one another. That's what they want. They want civil war because then they know how to deal with it. Again, I'm not advocating for civil war. I'm just saying how I think it's going to happen. I mean, at the minute, this country is in a vice grip. The government has this country in a vice grip. People are literally struggling. They don't know where. Some people that I know are doing 90 hours a week, just put food on the table, and they're seeing half their wages disappear to the government. And then they're seeing that money not spent on them. They're seeing it go abroad in foreign aid, or they're seeing it spent on illegal immigrants in 4-star hotels. And they're thinking to themselves, you know what? Why am I working? Why am I working when half of my wages are going to people to live a life of luxury in hotels who have no business being in this country? Why am I working? And at some point, you're going to get a breaking point where you start. It happened in America. People were giving up. They're saying, well, why am I working when so much has been taken off me in tax? We get income tax taken off us. We get taxed at the petrol pump. We get taxed on our goods when we buy them, VAT. We're taxed at every single opportunity. And people are just saying, well, what's the point? Why am I working? We're not working to live. We're working to exist at the minute. And there's a difference. People can't just live, can't just work to exist, because it's not a life. When I say work to exist, I mean you're working to just put food on the table, pay your bills, and that's it, and then go to work, eat, sleep, and shit, and that's your life. That's working to exist. Working to live is when you have an excess amount of money where you can go out and socialize, have holidays, buy nice things for yourself and your family, that sort of thing. That's all been taken away for many, many people in this country. That's why the town centres are devoid of people on Saturday nights. Nobody really goes out drinking anymore because they can't afford to do it. Nobody goes out to the restaurants anymore because they can't afford to do it. And then what happens? Those places start to shut down, and then people have got nowhere to go to blow off steam. And President Kennedy was right, JFK. He said, if those that stop peaceful revolution will make violent revolution inevitable. And it's true, because people will have no outlet. They will have no outlet to vent their anger, because it's like a vice clamping down on us. At one time, you could vent your anger, you could go online, you could vent your anger and get it out of your system. But now people are being arrested for that. You can't even vent your anger online anymore. There's just no way you can say it. If you vent it out in public, you stand a chance of being arrested. People don't have free speech, and all that anger is getting pent up because there's no release for it anymore. And that will build and build and build. And it can't last forever. Something's got to give. And I do agree with Richard Innman when he said that there will be a catalyst moment. There will be a spark that sets it all off, that ignites it all. We came very, very close to the Southport event of last summer, where those poor little girls were murdered. We came very close. That could have quite easily have escalated to the whole of the country, quite easily. Every town and city. Fortunately, it just drilled out. It just calmed down. But to me, that was like an aftershock before the main earthquake. To me. So look at some of the comments. I've not seen a street cleaner for over 5 years. Our pathways are never cleared or cleaned. Council tax is not doing anything locally. No, it's not. And the thing is, right, people think that your council tax goes to your local council. It doesn't. It goes to the main government, and then the government gives that percentage of that back to your local council, which I think is wrong. If you're paying council tax, it's called council tax. It should go directly from the people of that borough to the council that governs over them, but it doesn't. All the council taxes go into the main pot, and then the government decides how much money each council gets, which I think is wrong. It's supposed to be local government. The council tax is supposed to be a local tax, not a national tax. That's where a lot of people get confused. Would it be nice if Trump locked up Stalin? Yeah, that's never going to happen. Nobody's going to come to our rescue. If we're going to get out of this, it's going to be by ourselves, unfortunately. Yeah, if only. Hi, mate. Wishful thinking. Laugh out loud. Yeah, definitely. I watched Richard Innman's video, and I disagreed on quite a few of his points, to be honest with you. I don't agree with this notion of a home guard. I mean, look at the way our police are acting. Look at the way our army has been politicized, and our police. Do we really want another force that would be politicized? They would politicize it, and it wouldn't be used to protect the people or defend the people. It would be used to suppress the people under this current regime. I see a massive danger in that. Even if you decided to only use serving soldiers or ex-soldiers, it would still be controlled by the government, and they would still have to take their orders from the Starmer regime in that respect. And I think it's dangerous, very dangerous at this point in time. Yeah, totally agree. Very, very dangerous. I don't trust the people in charge. It would be governed by the woke, by the globalists, and it would be used to suppress the people of this country. And like I said early on in this stream, that in itself could trigger the civil war that it was set up to defend against. You basically build the Home Guard would be basically a home army of the establishment to use against the people. Bad idea. Really, really bad idea, that. So let's talk about this on the screen, because I haven't really talked about this that I've got on the screen at the minute. The concept, when I say we're in a cold civil war, I didn't come up with this concept. This one's from Lawrence Fox. He came up with this idea, but I agree with it. We are in a cold civil war at the minute. And what do I mean by that? At the minute, it's like it's a war of information at the minute. It's everybody on the right against everybody on the left, and it goes beyond the culture war. This isn't the culture war. This is just about being on the right side of history, isn't it? Everything that Starmer and the Starmer regime is doing is the wrong side of history. Everybody that's on the right is on the right side of history, as far as I'm concerned. That's what I mean by a cold civil war. It's a war of words at the minute. It's not a full-blown civil war. It's like we've got the government, every time we come out and we say something, they suppress our speech and our freedom of expression. And so people go up against that. They push those boundaries back, like we've seen recently with the people burning the Qurans. Then you see the police coming in and arresting those people. Eventually, something is going to give. People can't take this forever. And like I said, I did private security out in Iraq for 5 years. I lived out there. I lived the war, and I wasn't. When the serving British soldiers and American soldiers out there, they spend most of their time on base. They go out on patrols and then they go back. Yeah, they meet and greet the people. They get to know some of the people. But that's mainly the higher ups and that sort of thing. I was living out there among the Iraqis. I saw war up close and personal. I can't go into too much detail because I'm still covered by non-disclosure agreements about my time out there. So I can't go into details or anything like that. But I can tell you, war is not pretty. It really isn't. And when it's on your door, when it's on your own doorstep, it's scary. And that's what civil war would be. It wouldn't be in some faraway land. We're talking about a war that would most likely be fought in your streets next to you, in your gardens and stuff like that. And it's not something that you want your children to see, put it that way. The only thing I can say about my time in Iraq is I saw some horrific things. I saw the worst in humanity, what they can do to each other. And when, I went to certain villages out there, we used to protect infrastructure workers, and on the weekend we do other duties as well. We went out to a village. We were going through a village, and it had been totally wiped out by ISIS. And the horrific things that I saw, it was like something out of a horror film. It really was what these people are capable of. And I don't want that to come to our shores. And, I never expected it to. And then you come home and then you find out that the very people that you were fighting against out in Iraq are now your next door neighbors. That's the scary thing, because our politicians, our media, And some of these political commentators on YouTube have no clue what these people are capable of. They really don't. They don't know what they're capable of. I've seen horrific things what these people have done, ISIS. I've seen them put C4 inside little kids' bodies as decoys, as bombs, because they know that people will go up and try and remove the bodies, and use dead children's bodies as IEDs. That's how sick in the head these people are. And they think it's perfectly legitimate to do that because their holy book tells them to do it, or their interpretation of the holy book tells them to do it. Become a war of attrition. We need to stay calm. Exactly. How many illegals do you think have military experience? I'm going to say quite a few. I went on a course a few years back, and I was talking to an ex-police commissioner, and he told me, he said, if you knew how many terror training camps there were in this country, he said everybody would be scared. Everybody would be scared. He said there are literally thousands. And I know from my experience in Iraq that a lot of these terror cells, these training camps are run out of mosques. They are. That mosques are breeding ground of extremism and terrorism. And it's all done under the guise of religion. You've only got to look back to the last summer when we saw that video of the police officer telling these Islamists to take their weapons back to the mosque. I'm sure everybody remembers that video because it went viral, that video. If you want to stop extremism in this country, then you have to investigate every single mosque in the UK, because that's what we found out in Iraq, that the mosques out there were doubling as places where intelligence was swapped, where terrorists were hidden, hidden from our forces. They were distributing intelligence, and we even found one where there was actually storing IEDs. So I'm not saying that's going to be indicative of every single mosque in this country, but we definitely know there are extremist mosques in the UK. Definitely. That's without a doubt. More comments. So yeah. I don't agree with the Home Guard suggestion. I think that's a really bad idea, given who we've got in charge. The Islamic terror threat is exaggerated lie, but it does the job to rile up the gullible. Yeah, to be honest with you, I think the Islamic extremist threat is exaggerated, and it's exaggerated for a reason. It's just another form of identity politics. It's just to get different groups to fight against different people, to divide us. But extremism does exist, and it's a real danger in this country, definitely. And everybody should be aware of that. And like I said, I disagree with Richard Innman. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think if there was going to be a civil war, I don't think it's going to come from jihadists or anything like that. I think it's going to come from an economic standpoint where people just can't afford to live anymore, and they become desperate, and people start defaulting on their mortgages. They can't afford to live anymore, and then violence breaks out because they've got nowhere else to turn. I think that's a very real thing. It could quite easily come from the farming community. If you see police going up to a farm to repossess it, so the government can possess the land, The farming communities are very close knit. A lot of the farms are owned by families. It's not just one farm. Sometimes it's lots of farms. You'll have a farm owned by the father. His son will own a farm. His other son will own a farm. Even the daughter could own a farm. These are very tight knit communities. So it could come from that direction. How many illegally? It could literally come from anywhere at this point in time. Whatever you think, the country is an absolute powder keg, and it's been like that for a very, very long time. Yep, I agree. Biggest threat to is governance. Always has been, always will be. Governance is the largest active form of terrorism. Yep. I think the more we see our freedoms being taken away from us, because they're being trickled away. I saw something today. I think David Cotain was speaking about it. He was in the London Assembly. That guy. What party is he in charge of? It's not. Is it Heritage Party that he's in charge of? He was saying they've brought a bill in today in Parliament to allow police to enter people's houses without a warrant. So we're looking at ever encroaching reduction of your rights. Not too sure about that. Seeing how many attacks in Ireland by illegals recently, and I have many crossing each day, is scary. Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. We definitely have terror cells in this country. There's no doubt that. For 1 second, we have ISIS terrorist cells in this country. And you've seen what's happened across Europe recently with these so-called stabbings and things like that. And then they just get called, they're just mentally ill. It's not. They're not going to attack in groups of people. They're terror cells. They're just going to send one person out to do a mass stabbing. And then the governments are going to try and sweep it under the carpet by saying, it's just a lone wolf. He's mentally ill. They're not. They're working to a plan. Right. I've said what I'm going to say. So I'm going to call this stream. I just wanted to respond a bit to what Richard Innman had actually said about England being close to civil war, and I totally disagree with him on having a home guard. Giving the Starmer regime yet another force to suppress the people is not a good idea. You've got to see who's in charge. Do you really trust Keir Starmer with a force that would be based on our home land, like an army? Would you really trust Keir Starmer not to use that against the people of this country? Because I don't. I don't for 1 second. And it wouldn't be used to suppress. I mean, Richard Innman talked about it being used to suppress the far right. The far right is basically non-existent. They're non-existent. The far right in this country could fill a small car park. That's it. They're non-existent. They don't have any power whatsoever. And that's for good reason. And that's a good thing. The real far right don't have any power whatsoever. They're insignificant. They're on the fringe. The real concern we should be worried about is the far left and the Starmer regime, because they are a real threat to our democracy and our way of life. Richard likes a bit of alarmism. The right does in general, to be fair. I would trust Starmer to run a bath. No, exactly not. And I've heard that they're on about increasing income tax further. They want to increase income tax to apparently pay for the imaginary black hole that supposedly exists, that we all know it is a lie. Right, that's all I've got to say. I've got nothing else to say. So if anybody wants to post another comment, if you want to post another comment, do it now because I'm going to end the stream. So before I go, don't forget, I'll put it on screen now. Don't forget to go check out my Twitter, which is Dark Knight DA. And on Rumble, I am Vindicator Vengeance. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps out this channel because I am shadow banned. Right, if that's it, guys, we're going to leave it there. Thanks for watching. This is Vindicator, signing off.